Hello and welcome to the video. Me and Max are finally back to finish off this mystery bounty review. Anything you want to say before we jump in, Max?
Sorry it's taken so long, guys. Let's get stuck in.
Let's do this. All right, so this is the start of the final table. You can see the stack distribution here. I'm in second place with 45 bigs. Ty's in chip lead with 60 bigs. The mystery bounty at this point, not so relevant. It's going to be worth a pretty small amount because the big ones have been won and we're quite deep into the tournament, so the pay jumps are going to be a lot more important. But if there is a close spot, it could be that the fact you win a mystery bounty if you bust someone could make you go that a little bit wider, but it's not going to be what determines the strategy. Is there anything else you want to say about these stacks, Max?
Yeah, I think the one interesting point, just straight away, is we kind of got two tiers in this tournament at this point. Well, three, I guess. You've got Ty here with the kind of runaway chip lead, and although it's only 15 blinds, that's quite a big difference here. When when you're going to mostly be min raising in order to steal pots, and then you are ahead of, let's say, Division One, Brandon, which is yourself, Gary, Mark, and Lawrence, and then you've obviously got Vitali, Pavel, Shukri, and Jack all kind of fighting to get up to that what will be sixth place, sorry, position. So it's kind of interesting here because there's a lot less ICM, I'd say, on Vitali, Pavel, Shukri, and Jack here compared to Lawrence, Mark, Gary, and yourself. You are really disincentivized to play pots against each other, whereas these three short stacks are really incentivized to rejam wide against you four stacks when you open. Let's see if they're aware of that and they get the rejams in. Let's see if you guys are all kind of playing in accordance with that and realizing that, again, you've got to play either tighter against the people that cover you, and you've got to be careful calling off the short stacks. It's going to be an interesting watch, as I say, with the kind of almost two divisions of stack.
And as for like actual positions, Ty is here in seat number one. I'm in seat number three, so I do have position on Ty, which is actually really good for me because the times that Ty folds, I'm effective chip leader, and the fact I've got position on him is just generally good because getting to see what he does.
Exactly what you said. I'd also add it's just great that, if he's on your left or two to your left, you open your hijack, your cutoff, you can face the three bet behind, whereas it's the other way around here. If he opens the hijack, you get to play your button, which is kind of amazing, really. Against the one player who covers you. So this is a very fortunate table draw, I would say, for you.
First spot here, I think Mark is opening too loosely here. Queen Jack offsuit. He's +1 9-handed. This is the sort of hand that it's not worth that much in chip EV. Chip EV being where you don't need to consider payouts and you don't have a big consequence for losing your whole stack. But Queen Jack is not the best hand. It's not the worst either. If he was chip lead, he would definitely want to open. Or maybe if it was me in this position, I could probably just about get away with it. But I think with his stack, he wants to be folding here.
I was going to add the two things as well I'm looking at when I'm making what is perhaps a wider open, which this is from Mark. Where's the chip lead and where's the other player that covers me? If I recall, he's third or fourth in chips, Mark, and he's got the chip leader, I believe, on the button.
Yeah.
And he's got yourself in the big blind. So who's going to defend the widest? It's going to be you. Who can damage him? It's going to be you. Who's going to play the second most hands? It's going to be the chip leader on the button. So I think if you are going to make a loose open, you want to attack, say, the bigger stacks being either in early position where there's not much they can do about it, or be saying the small blind where they're in the worst seat, right? They can't close the action.
Yeah,
They're out of
yeah.
position.
There's a little bit of collision going on too. There's a few stacks less than 15 bigs that are more likely to get it in against each other, more likely someone else busts if he just lets it happen. So if the hand's neutral or close to neutral, then we could gain more EV from folding in that way as well.
But very relevant point, Brandon, and something I think just quickly to pick up on. This is a really important point, guys. When you're in ICM compared to chip EV, when you fold in chip EV, your EV is immediately zero. But when you fold in ICM, in a lot of spots, or maybe even in all spots, depending on your holding, but if it's a break-even hand, for example, you actually make money because every time you fold in ICM, there's the possibility that someone else busts behind and bumps you up the pay ladder. So you actually make money by folding in ICM.
Which is always nice, free money. This is quite an interesting flop. I noticed that I do have it on 2x speed, but he does snap bet that I check, and he's just straight away, yeah, I'm in, I bet. Which can be a bit of a timing tell. Maybe he's decided he's going to range bet no matter what already. Or maybe he's seen the board is good and quickly known that it's definitely a bet. Maybe if he does have a check range here, if he has like a 10 or a hand that's a bit more iffy, like ace king, maybe it's could be argued as a bit iffy. Ace jack, king jack, these sort of hands. Mainly like pocket nines or ace 8 or ace 10, king 10, these sort of medium strength hands might want to think a little bit more. But he could also have just, I'm going to range bet no matter what in his head. That might be why he bets so fast. But either way, I think my hand here, second pair, backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw. I think I just have an easy call. Not much to think about here for me.
I think actually, if you don't have a backdoor flush draw, I think it's already kind of close, especially versus 40%, to be honest with you,
Yeah, a
versus
10
the
without
underground range.
without a backdoor, I would fold for sure. Like if I had 10
Yeah.
7 of what's the suit not on the board here? Spades. Even
It's
though I do just about have a backdoor straight draw, like the 9-6 or like the Jack 9 is, we're going to play the board, so the 9-6 might just about make it okay. But to be honest, this board is so bad and his open range is supposed to already be like pretty tight. I think I would just let it go if I have a 10 without a redraw. I'd call with, like, it's better to call with 8-7 of hearts than 10-6, than 10-7 of spades, I would say here, because you've got that extra bit of backup to win the hand.
I think I'd still go ahead and range bet. It's just that particularly hands like King 10, pocket nines are the ones that fit, or maybe like an ace 8 suited, are the ones that feel like they really, really hate getting check raised. But there's so little check raising, I think, going on when you're in the big blind here, just in
I
general
think
with your range. So
I think if I want to go after him, I can because I have Jack 9 offsuit and Jack 9 suited. He maybe Jack 9 suited should fold for him, but if he's opening Queen Jack off, maybe it opens. But I have pure Jack 9 offsuit here, which is quite a lot of nutted hands, and he is in a position where the way I look at it is the good hands usually on this board are like your top pair, top kicker, ace queen, or your overpair, kings, aces. These are really good hands. But in ICM, these hands are not happy to go broke. He might want to be a bit more cautious as soon as the immediate advantage hands aren't super thrilled to go broke. That's kind of a window into the fact you don't necessarily want to bet your whole range. If I'm not punishing enough by like not check raising with bluffs or kind of going after him, then he can definitely range bet and get away with it fine. But if I have a hand like King 9, 9-7, maybe 9-6 suited with a backdoor flush draw, maybe like a Jack 7 suited backdoor flush draw, I could see myself just always going for a check raise here and putting the pressure on. And a hand like his can probably call a bet, but call a raise, but he's going to feel the pressure immediately by the turn by the river. So I think mixing in checks with a lot of your even top pairs, over pairs it can be good against an aggressive player.
I think, yeah, on second look and having a bit more time to think about it, I think like a Queen 10-7 is just a pure bet. And then I think you're right with you having that 16 combos of nut ad, and then you probably having, I think covering in a bounty, you probably even have 10-8 offsuit here as the bottom. Probably Queen 8 off gets really close to you, but you definitely have Queen 10 off as well. And he obviously doesn't have these offsuit two pairs. Granted, he has three sets, but you know what? We do too. I actually think we pill queens pre-flop. Maybe we three
Yeah,
bet exactly queen. We definitely have tens and eights. Yeah, I think
yeah, yeah.
probably this is definitely a board that isn't as good for EP as it looks for two reasons. One, he doesn't open some offsuit or he's not supposed to open some offsuit combos and some perhaps queen eight suited that maybe he would already have. But B, and Jack 9, like you suggested, he might not open that either. But B, you have hands you wouldn't have in Chippy V, right? Like you might even mix three bets with pocket tens in Chippy V. You definitely three bet queens in Chippy V, and then you have more crap in Chippy V, right? Like you're going to
Yeah.
defend more rubbish. Whereas here you're going to have more of a connected. Your offsuit region is going to be more connected and dense around this board. So yeah, you're not going to defend like Jack 7 off as much, right? But you're going to defend Queen Jack, Queen 9, 10, 10 9, Jack 10, hands like that. So I think it's actually a lot better of a board for big blind versus under the gun compared to usual actually. So I think you make some very good points there. And I probably at first glance misinterpreted how good of a board this was for gun. I think like Queen 10-7, Queen 10-6, as I say, is a lot stronger even compared to usual.
Yeah, just that straight being possible really hurts us. If market opened off a much shorter stack, like even if he has just a million, then it changes things a lot because suddenly if he has ace queen, if he has kings, if he has aces, he's kind of obligated to go broke even on a board like this. But because he's got close to 2 million, he really just doesn't want to go broke even with the immediate overpair, I don't think, at least not always. And as soon as that's the case, you lost your advantage if your overpairs aren't happy to go broke, like the top overpairs. And I think against a lot of like typical live players, you can still get away with a range bet, but it might end up punishing you if you bet too much against the wrong person. I wasn't sure what bet size to use here on the river, but because of his like quick turn check, I was pretty sure he had some sort of medium showdown hand. Like either he turned an ace and was going for pot control, he had a hand like kings, or he had a hand like a queen. And I think against that, when I unblock the ace and the queen and pocket kings and those sort of hands, that I want to go at least like 2/3 and just bet as greedy as I think he's not going to fold with an ace and might call sometimes with a queen.
Yeah, I don't think your typical player in this spot's ever going to fold an ace. They're not really going to have much to think about. Whereas I think that actually, if I'm in this spot and I've played like ace 4 suited like this, I'm going to be disgusted with any size you choose here. I think that your average player is going to snap call it off. It looks like you go 600. Is that right? This is a little bit too greedy. Like he could have a7. He can very occasionally have some kind of a trap.
Yeah, there's only one A7
I
suited.
suppose. Yeah, you probably do have the nuts. Really, thinking about it, yeah, you probably do have the nuts. But it's just that no, you probably do have the nuts. He's never going to fold a hand like ace jack or ace king to any size. I wouldn't have thought. He might
Or
never
ace
fold
nine or like
kings.
ace five. I think it's just really hard to fold once you've checked, and I think it's kind of a nice dynamic for me where it looks like I'm attacking the fact that I think he has somewhere
Hmm.
between pocket jacks and an ace, and he never has better than an ace. And I thought it's kind of a level, but I thought if I choose this small overbet, it looks like I'm trying to make him fold, and it's less likely he will. But you can obviously
Yeah.
play around with that and the psychology. Some people are going to just now start folding an ace, and it becomes a bad bet. Some people are now going to start calling more because they think you're trying to make them fold, and that's kind of always down to the dynamics of the time. Like it could be that if I wanted to actually bluff here with a hand like an 8 or a 10 that I don't think I'll show down anymore, like 10-9, 8-9, 8-6 of hearts, whatever it is. Maybe I just go all in if I do want to bluff, or maybe I don't take the spot because maybe I just don't think he's folding enough. And it's all going to be down to what I'm thinking in the moment based on past hands, past perception of this player. And I think my thought in game was that he might be a little bit stubborn. That's why I got a bit greedy. And it's nice that I have got a pretty good image that I do go after people in these sort of spots. Uh, so it's a lot harder to fold versus me, I would say, with based on some of the other hands people see.
Hmm.
So I get
Um,
greedy when I can.
I think I'm all for getting greedy as well in general. I just think that on a final table, I think I personally would have probably bet more like between 2/3 and 3/4, maybe 80%. I think that your analysis is excellent in terms of thought process on the speed of both c bet and turn check. So like I say, he either has bet everything or has a hand that definitely wants to c bet. Turn snap check to me feels, and and who knows, but if you think about range, this card, the way range wants to play, and then you think about real human situation, I'm looking at two cards. How would I play my hand with a quick check? It seems very, very, very unlikely to me he ever has better than a strong one pair on the turn. I would actually go as far as saying it's very likely if he's not doing something like trapping aces, which I do think is possible, something like aces that needs
Yeah,
like very
yeah.
little protection. Maybe occasionally someone gets a bit sneaky with king jack, but other than that occasional trap, I'd say like probably I'd cap him to ace king almost always. So given those things, I think your sizing seems reasonable. It's just that it's not that I think you're going to value cut yourself that much. It's more that I think you're just going to lose EV from the wider range that might call if you bet like 450 here.
Yeah, like
Like
lock up
if
the call pure rather than maybe he
yes,
folds
yes, yes.
20% of the time and it ends up being worth slightly less. Yeah.
Because this is the thing we've got to figure out as well, right? Like in the moment, like how much more elastic is he with ace five suited versus queen jack here versus kings here? And it's possible that all three of those call 400 every time. He might be ironically good enough to realize that like queen jack's maybe a better call when you go 600 compared to ace five, or he might be the other way around. But the point is I think he'll become not this Mark, this I don't know Mark specifically. I'm talking about any opponent might become more elastic to sizing with different parts of their range. And if you said to me, right, any hand better than queen nine always calls 400, that's what I would want to target. And by the way, that runs true in theory also, right? That's not just me saying that. That is theoretically correct. You size down more because you know what I mean. Because first of all, the smaller sizing puts adequate pressure on. But second of all, that's how you get the most EV out of I think your whole range. Anyway, I'm going to say he doesn't fold this personally.
Think
Yeah,
through.
he has to
Like
suit.
it's
He has to suit. Yeah. And by the way, I also think when you do overbet river here, his hand becomes much better than having something like ace five. I think you do have king jack a lot for the overbet sizing. I don't know that many of your bluffs are going to have a jack in them because I actually think that ordinarily in chippy v you'd have jack seven off probably. You'd
yeah.
have jack deuce suited, but not only won't you not necessarily defend all of those pre-flop, but you've already said yourself, if you've got Jack X with a back door there, you're probably going to check raise the flop a lot. So you are missing a bunch of bluffs with a Jack in them. Your bluffs, in my mind, there are going to be hands like, as you kind of said yourself, an 8, perhaps even some 10x, and then, some kind of like King 9 that didn't check raise. So
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
think, or 7-9, something like that. So I think that actually he probably has the best bluff catch you can have other than ace jack, because I guess the bottom of your value range is any two pair for that size, right? So having the queen is very relevant because I don't think you necessarily check raise queen 8 and queen 10 pure. You have
No.
ace queen pure, you have queen 7 suited pure, you have king jack pure. So I think it's probably just a well played hand by both once he gets there, but he just probably should fold pre and not get himself in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think his call is actually reasonable on the river, and it's easy for me to overdo bluffs.